Hey, what's up, guys? Dylan Johnson from Soccer Mag here, and welcome back to another episode of Mixing with the DJs. I am joined by my fellow DJ Dylan Jack, and today we will be previewing Matchday 6 of the Premier League. There is some massive news relating to the first game, Man City vs Newcastle. Rodri is out for at least a very long time. What are your thoughts on that whole situation? Massive loss for Man City.
Yeah, it's a huge loss. It's a massive blow. Probably aside from Haaland, who's their big goal scorer, arguably, Rodri is City's most influential player, both on attack and defence. We've seen him contribute both sides of the ball. So, yeah, it's a massive, massive blow, and it's advantage Arsenal, I think, in the title race. When you look at City's win percentage with Rodri compared to it without Rodri, that's a huge difference. Arsenal have definitely got the upper hand now. It's just up to them to take it. But yeah, in terms of this game, he's going to be a massive miss. Newcastle will be hungry. They'll be stinging coming off that loss against Fulham, and they'll want to be and they'll see this as an opportunity. You're facing a City side that's had a very, very challenging game.
No De Bruyne,
against
no
Arsenal.
Rodri.
No De Bruyne, no Rodri. Newcastle, I think Newcastle will know even though they're playing at St James's Park, they're underdogs for this game. So,
I think we've seen over the past 1 to 2 seasons, Rodri is probably the best midfielder in his. Yes. I mean, he's the best in his position in the world. I think it's easy to say that. And if you don't think he is, he's probably the most influential and just steps in at the massive moments. There is no player like Rodri that does the job he does. And I think, like you mentioned, the win percentage is just the only time City drop points is without him. So it'll be interesting to see how they do now over potentially, I think they've said till the end, he might be out for the rest of the season. And it's been 5 games. This is a serious test now of Manchester City, because we saw before when Liverpool won the title that, Man City lost, I think it was Laporte and 1 or 2 other players, and they completely crumbled. So Arsenal, in my opinion now, it's their league title to lose, because this is just, yes, they've lost Odegaard, but Odegaard doesn't have as much of a role as Rodri for Man City. I think we all agree. I mean, last season when they had De Bruyne and Haaland out, they were still fine because they had Rodri.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think Newcastle can really attack Man City this weekend. I still think City, they seem fired up after that Arsenal draw. I think mentally that this Rodri injury, if it's going to do anything positive, it'll be, that firing them up.
Yeah.
Because their squad depth is still amazing. I think they can still have Gundogan. They still have Kovacic. They still have Matthias Nunes, who's done basically nothing since he's gone to City. So, yeah, I'm going to give City a 2-1 win, but I think it'll be a seriously interesting game to see how they respond.
Yes, I'm actually going to go the reverse. I'm going to go 2-1 to Newcastle. I think, just for an interesting little twist there. But also, I think the injury brings us on to like a bigger talking point, which is what Roger was talking about before, leading up to the City game. He was talking about players almost going on strike because of the workload that they're undergoing. And we've also seen now recently that Rafael Varane, who's also been very outspoken about player workload, has retired, has had to call a day on his career because he left United. He was released from or United didn't offer him a contract extension. His contract at United ran out. He tried to get a move to Italy with Como. It didn't work out because of his injuries, and now he's had to retire. And it's not exactly like Rafael Varane is old. It's not like
I think he's 31 or something. He should still have 4 or 5 years.
For a centre-back, that's still young. So there is a greater talking point here, I think, about player management and how many games. We saw Rodri playing so many games throughout the Euros for Spain after playing a huge part in City's title win. So I think there is a bigger talking point that needs to come from this about how players are managed and how FIFA and UEFA are probably overloading players on top of their domestic seasons. There's just too many international competitions. There's too many international games that don't really mean something in the greater, So yeah, I think that's a big talking point that needs to be discussed. Yeah.
And I think, at the end of the day, people that are losing is the fans, because they're not watching the best players in the world. The players, I think a huge criticism people say is that you earn so much money, just play. But the mental and physical demands of having to play at that level, firstly, 1 match a week, the mental strain of playing, for example, Manchester United, we've seen players never recover from their careers after having one or two bad games. The mental, it's like to psych yourself up, to stay in form, and then have to do that every 3 days. Essentially, now the way it is, it's forever. It's your entire career. I think Jude Bellingham's played 5 or 6 times the amount of minutes David Beckham did at the same age, and he's 21. He's suffering now with knee injuries, all these things, and obviously they earn a lot of money, and they'll earn more money than 99.9% of people in their lifetime. But at the end of the day, you want to watch the best footballers play consistently, and I would rather watch Rodri play every week. Now, I'm not going to see him again for the rest of the season because he's been broken completely, physically and mentally.
Yes.
So yeah, football's reaching an interesting point because it is, FIFA and UEFA, are they the ones keeping the money? I don't see it dropping down to the lower tiers of football. So if the benefit is that teams are more competitive, then I guess that. But yeah, I don't think it's really trickling down the pyramid.
No.
So moving on to the next game, we have Arsenal versus Leicester. I think Arsenal are going to absolutely pummel them.
Yes.
Yeah. I think 3-0 Arsenal. I don't really see any. Maybe Leicester will get a goal somehow, but I think Arsenal could even do 4-5.
Yes, yeah, I think this is definitely Arsenal's game. They'll be very buoyed by, even though they dropped 2 points against City with that late goal, they'll be buoyed by that performance. I think going down a man and just holding City out defensively, being so defensively resolute. Now they can show the attacking part of their game. They can cut loose. I mean, and as we've said, they have, in terms of starting lineup and strongest players, they have pretty much their strongest lineup other than Odegaard. So this is a game that Arsenal can really go at Leicester. Leicester haven't been great this season. They've not been very good. So yeah, this is a game that Arsenal can go on and score 4 or 5.
And I think also Arsenal, similarly to Man City, their response to the result last weekend has been very, almost like us against the world. People are criticizing the way we're playing. People are criticizing our players. People are criticizing the way we score goals. And I think, there's been a lot of animosity in the media, especially I think Arteta had a press conference earlier in the week, and it was like people asking him how he plays. He's like, I don't care. Like, we'll play however you label us what you want. So I just think the season's heating up already after so few games, and it's exciting. But yeah, Arsenal to absolutely destroy Leicester.
Yeah, and on that point, I mean, I've seen enough of United under Fergie when they were criticised for the way that they played, for the way they defended, sometimes for their aggression, sometimes for their counter-attacking football, for many different ways, to say that just galvanises a team. Under a good manager, and Mikel Arteta is a good manager, it will just work to galvanise this Arsenal team and fire them up. So yeah.
And I think it's something that it's interesting because Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola have pretty much never ever had that criticism because they've never I don't think I can remember a game where Liverpool put 10-11 men behind the ball. Maybe at Newcastle, I think it was last year, where Liverpool had a red card in like the 20th minute and then had to play on the counter-attack, but that's one game. I think Arsenal have consistently now over the past year shown they are willing to sit back and just let the game play out. So it's an interesting one because we know Arsenal can play free-flowing football, but they are leaning on this a bit, and it does get under opposition fans' skin. But yeah, after that, we have Brentford versus West Ham. I think Brentford take this one. I don't think West Ham have been very good this season. No. I think, they got absolutely destroyed against Chelsea, and they didn't look like they had anything. No fight, no intensity. I think you mentioned in the last episode, they looked like they had no plan whatsoever. No. And Brentford are almost... They have less quality, but they're the opposite organisation-wise. They're a very organised team. Everyone knows their role, and they're at home. And I just think Brentford, maybe a 2-1 Brentford win.
Yeah, for their fault. I mean, Brentford are a very good tactically set out team. Thomas Frank is a very underrated manager. I think, and he's got this team, playing very consistently. So yeah, I think this Brentford take this 2-1 or maybe even 3-1. I think West Ham have been, as we've said, they've been very, very poor this season. That Chelsea game was awful. It didn't look like they were. That was a sort of a London derby of sorts
at home,
and they weren't fired up at all for that. They weren't even really putting in effort. We saw sort of Wan-Bissaka, one of the best, as I said in the last episode, Wan-Bissaka, one of the best defensive players, being caught upfield and not really making much of an effort to get back. And again, that talks to the sort of tactical mismanagement in this team. So, yeah, I think Brentford take this one.
And I think looking at West Ham as well, there doesn't seem to be any redeeming quality.
No.
I think we taking the piss out of Everton, but at least they're scoring goals. Yes. They're giving up leads, but at least they're scoring, 2, almost 3 goals a game. West Ham are not doing that, and they're conceding a lot.
Yes.
And when the in-game moments, I don't think there's many that they show promise.
No.
So it's a bit worrying from a West Ham point of view, and I think we both agree Brentford take this one. After this, I think probably besides the United Spurs game later in the week, I think this for the neutrals, a seriously exciting watch. Chelsea versus Brighton. Brighton have drawn 3 games in a row that they shouldn't have, really.
Yeah.
And then Chelsea seem to be on the up. I think they won 5-0 last night against Barrow. Yeah. And it is Barrow, but same conversation we had about United 7-0. Where do you see this game going? I'm a bit caught here.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, playing at home, I think Chelsea should be the favourites, obviously. And they are starting to find their feet. Again, they took advantage of a very poor West Ham performance, that they weren't really tested at all in that game. Brighton will give them a much bigger test in this one. But we've also seen a bit of defensive slackness from vulnerability with Brighton. They let in goals when they shouldn't really be letting in goals, as we saw in that Nottingham Forest game. And they struggle sometimes to get the goal when they really, really need it. I mean, they were playing against 10 men for 10 minutes against Nottingham, and they just couldn't get that. They struggle to really put the ball in the back of the net when they need to. So I think Chelsea are favourites for this one, but Brighton could easily could cause an upset in this one, just with the quality. I mean, Danny Welbeck is firing. They got João Pedro back on the field. They've got more than enough quality to hurt Chelsea, and this is where we see, is this Chelsea team really on a roll? Was it just playing against poor teams? What is this Chelsea side all about? And this is where we're probably going to get more of an answer about that. But I think Chelsea take it 2-1.
Because this is definitely, I think, since Man City on the opening day, they've mostly been playing lower tier mid-table teams. I can't really remember, a team in the area of Brighton. So I'm split between a 2-2, and I could see both teams winning this. I think both teams have a threat. Both teams are difficult to beat in this current form that they're in. It's difficult. I think I'm just going to go for a 2-1 Brighton to be on the other side of the coin.
Fair enough.
And last week, I must say, on one of the videos, someone commented that I think my prediction for the West Ham Chelsea, I think I gave it to West Ham or something. And they weren't very kind to me, but I appreciate the feedback. We like that. We enjoy that. You need to keep us humble. But so I'm going to go Brighton 2-1 just because I think it's possible.
Yes. Yeah.
After that, we have Everton versus Palace. And I think Palace, I would be more confident, but I just don't think they're that great.
Yeah.
And Everton, they've also just been terrible, so it's like you're not really working with much here.
Yes.
It's probably got 0-0 written all over it or something like that, or
2-2
crazy
3-3
or 2-2. I'm going to change it up and I'm going to go 2-1 Everton.
Okay.
I'm going to give them their first win of the season just because I don't think Palace have been great. No. And Everton at home, and I'm hoping they can do something.
Yeah, Palace created a couple of good opportunities against United, and they could have at least they should have got 1 goal, if you consider the quality of those chances. But again, they've sort of flattered to deceive, and a lot of people are rating them based on how they finished last season instead of how they've started this season. And it's been a really disappointing start to the season considering how they finished last season. But Everton have shown a threat. They've shown a capability of getting goals. They just can't hold on to them. They need games to end on the 60th minute and not later than that. They can play a good hour's football. So I could easily see. I think this is going to be a 2-2 draw. I think this ends as an entertaining 2-2 draw. Maybe someone gets sent off. It has all those hallmarks of a sort of lower table, mid-table sort of clash. Everton are probably more desperate for the 3 points. I think.
So, I think Everton are desperate right now. In general.
They are. So and there's just been I think there's good news with Everton getting a buyout. So that you never know how that affects sort of the morale of the players. They probably hear about those sorts of things. I think I'm going to go. I think 2-2, or I'm going to go give it like a 3-2 to Everton.
And I think on a side note, just talking about the ownership, I think Mashiri's, they said something, lost like £600 million or something crazy like that. It's been an
absolute disaster.
That has got to go down as one of the worst ownership regimes.
Yeah.
Not just for the owner, but for the club. I guess there are definitely worse with, going into administration and stuff, but what an investment. Losing 600, 700 million pounds in the space of like 5 years.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay. Nottingham Forest versus Fulham. I think, I've been pretty harsh on Forest.
Yes.
But they're unbeaten. And, Fulham are decent side. Forest don't have Gibbs White, which I think is a massive loss for them. Loss for them. But I think their run might continue. I'm going to go for 1-1.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think this, again, has all the marks of a sort of a entertaining draw. 1-1 is fair, or 2-2 is fair, I think, for this game. Fulham, they did cause a bit of a upset with their last win. Didn't expect that, getting a 3-1 against Newcastle. And as we said, they're a very settled team, and they're coming into a bit of form of their own. So I think they can hold it. And with Gibbs White missing, I think they can hold their own against this Nottingham side. So I actually think Fulham take it. I'm going to give them another 3-1. I think Fulham take it as another 3-1. Yeah.
So the first of games that are close to our hearts, we have Wolves versus Liverpool.
There you go.
At Wolves. And I'm still a bit shaken from that Nottingham Forest loss. But I think, Liverpool have responded really well. I think, they're, at the time of filming, they're playing in the League Cup this evening. I'm assuming Slot will rotate heavily. I think Curtis Jones probably comes back in. Jota gets rested again. I think Chiesa will start. So I think if he's on Saturday, he'll probably go full strength again. Because Wolves, we've seen before, they haven't gotten great. They don't get results, but it's never easy.
No.
It's never easy. They always have a threat. And I think it was last season at Wolves, Liverpool could have been 3-0 down at half-time if they were just clinical. But I think he goes strong. I think pretty much the exact same team. Maybe Jota comes in for Nunez. I don't really see a reason for him to rotate anything, really. It's been working 99% of the time. And I think Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai playing well in the middle. Defense is looking incredibly solid. Salah and Diaz are doing well. So I think the only change maybe will be Jota or Nunez. I'm not sure. But I think I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool or 2-0, 2-1 Liverpool. I'm going to give Wolves a goal because I think they will probably score.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'll go 2-0 Liverpool. I think this Wolves team is similar to Everton, but they can only play 45 minutes. They play one good half of football, and then the other half is kind of disastrous. They are desperate for points. They're sitting bottom of the table. They need something. But despite that, I don't think they have the quality to hurt Liverpool and get a win, even though they're playing at home. Wolves is a difficult place to go and play. I just think Liverpool, they're in too good of a run of form, and I just don't think this Wolves team has sort of the tactical nous or the quality that Nottingham has.
And I think also Liverpool have only conceded one goal this season.
Exactly.
And I think it seems very difficult to break down Liverpool, which I think compared to last season is like, it's music to my ears because we were going 1-0 down before we started playing almost every game last season. So I think the only area I can see Wolves scoring is a counter-attack similar to Forest, sitting back, waiting for their chance. But I don't think Wolves do that. No. I think the way they want to play is they want to be aggressive. So yeah, I think Liverpool should take this. Might be a bit tight, but I can see Liverpool controlling most of the game. After that, we have Ipswich versus Aston Villa. What do you think of this?
Villa been weird this season. they've had their moments where they've looked a bit shaky, but then they've had their moments where they sort of fight their way back into games. And
they've gone 1-0 down a couple times in the past few games.
Yes, yeah, that's the thing. And Ipswich are, they're one of those teams that also in a bit of a relegation fight. Also, they've started the season surprisingly well. I mean, they were given a horrid first 2 games of the season. They couldn't have asked for a harder first 2 games, but they're starting to sort of fight their way. They got a good draw in their last game. So
I think it's 3 draws in a row.
It's now 3 draws, in a row. So, but I think that, with Villa's depth, I think they're really buoyed by their run. I think they should come out of this with a win. I'm going to go 2-1 to Villa.
I agree. I think Villa just have too much firepower, similar to Liverpool and City, where Ipswich maybe for the first 45 grab a goal, try hold on, but I think Villa just have too much for them, and I think I'm gonna go for a 3-1.
3-1.
Just because I think the Villa have won 3-1 in the past 3 or 4 games in a row, so maybe Ipswich will take the lead and then Villa will just come back. But 3-1 Villa.
Yes.
Next up, United versus Spurs. Take us away.
Yeah, this is a big game for United. A very frustrating draw in the last game against Crystal Palace, where United showed their improvements this season, but just couldn't get the ball in the net. It was really frustrating in that regard. As I said, the performances have been a huge improvement based on last season. This isn't the same United that's letting sort of 13 or 14 or 15 or sometimes even 20 shots at their goal. Consistently. This is a much more defensively resolute United side. And it is tactically better on attack as well. And Ten Hag at least has a lot of options now. Højlund's coming back. He's fit again. Xerxes in there. He started the season really well, even though he's only got the 1 goal. In terms of his link-up and hold-up play, he's settled in really, really well into the side. There's a lot of options out wide with Diallo sealing that right-wing spot. You've got Garnacho and Rashford fighting out for the left wing. So there's at least a little bit of competition in the squad, which you couldn't really say about United last season.
I think last season you could pick United.
Last season it was so easy to pick United starting 11. You knew what it was going to be. You knew kind of how they were going to play. Even if you didn't know how United were going to play, you could just play through United's midfield anyway. You didn't really have to study up. The team was such a mess that it was very easy to carve United apart. But this season's a lot different, and playing at home, I think United need to bounce back. Spurs, it's been a bit iffy. These are 2 sides that you'd expect to be sort of up in the top 4 at the early parts of the season, but haven't really got off to the best start. Spurs, they've struggled in terms of their firepower. They're obviously losing Harry Kane, and now they've spent big money on Solanke, who's had good games, had bad games. He's your typical sort of...
Son not really firing.
Son not really linking up with Solanke. The link up between Solanke and Son isn't the same as Kane and Son, where Kane would drop into midfield, Son would run beyond and get the pass. Solanke's not that player. He wants to be holding the ball up. He wants to be the target man. That's how Solanke plays. So it's going to be really interesting. I think United have the centre-backs to deal with Solanke. I think he'll try and target Martinez because of the height.
But De Ligt, I think, has got the aerial bats.
But De Ligt will help cover that. I think De Ligt really good at the end. Mazraoui also quite tall.
Deleuze also.
I think you'll probably see Ugarte making his first start in this one. Who knows what? I mean, we tried to predict the mid. We didn't really see him starting Eriksen in 3 games in a row. But I think Ugarte does, and that also helps with the physical duel, helps cover Martinez in the physical duel with Solanke. And, Kobe Manu's been solid at the start, maybe a bit overworked. But also been solid. And Bruno's been a bit iffy. He's probably been the one sort of up and down player in this team. I think he's had some good moments, and he's had some really, really poor decision making on attack and poor execution. Even though you're expecting him to give the ball away a lot, he's which attacking midfielders do, because they take on risky passes, and De Bruyne that's their job.
Yeah.
De Bruyne also gives the ball away a lot, and he's rated as one of the best in the world. But Bruno's decision making has been a bit iffy this season. But I still think United playing at Old Trafford, I just think they have too much firepower for the Spurs team. We saw what happened when Spurs came up against Arsenal. They gave Arsenal a bit of problems in the first half, but eventually that defence couldn't keep Arsenal out. I think United have a similar sort of wide variety of threats to Arsenal. If Rashford isn't working down the left wing, you could switch him inside. You could bring Garnacho on. You could play Højlund and Xerxes for the first time this season. There's just so many options that United have now. It's just getting these strikers into a run of form. So if they do manage to get on a roll and get a lot of momentum, I see United taking a 2-1 or maybe even a 3-1 win out of this. I just think the Spurs team, if you get ahead, I don't think they have the capacity that they used to fight their way back.
And I think an area that really could benefit United, especially with Rashford, Garnacho and Bruno, is the high line that Spurs play. Yes. I think we know exactly how Spurs are going to defend. And Rashford and Garnacho, that's their bread and butter. That's what they want. They want to be around the halfway line. And Bruno wants to be pinging balls into space. So I think that's an interesting aspect of the game to watch and see how disciplined are Spurs and how can they keep up, because I can see Rashford getting 5 or 6 chances already. I just know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to be on the left wing and he's going to be waiting, and Bruno's not even going to look up, and he's going to hit it in that top left corner. So I think that's Spurs' biggest problem, because that's exactly what United's attacking players want.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm split with this game because I think Spurs, they looked a lot better against Brentford last week, and I really don't want United to win. I think that's the most important thing. I like Spurs more than I like United. So I think I'm going to go 2-2.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think both teams could score. I think this could be a very exciting game.
Yes. Yeah, if it does end up in a draw, that's got to be another real bit of a setback for United. Then you need to win, especially against teams that are going to be in and around you. You need to win your home games. You're going away to like a Crystal Palace, you can maybe excuse not getting the win, especially if you've played well in that game. You can kind of say, well, we played well, but at home against teams that you know are going to be in that top 6 battle.
Unless it's Man City or Arsenal.
Unless it's Man City and Arsenal. Obviously, they just on another level compared. I think you have to be getting the win. I think this is a game that, again, United have to win at home, and I see them coming away with the win. Yeah. Okay, well, things are looking up for both of us this weekend. The final game, Monday, Bournemouth versus Southampton. Not much to say. I'm going 3-0 Bournemouth. I think that's what I'm going for. Yeah, I'm going similar. Yeah, I think 3-0 Bournemouth. I just think Southampton, not a very good side. They're relying their best player is an 18-year-old, who's just playing as very inexperienced, just as good as he has been, playing in his first. They don't have a lot of firepower up front. And their defense isn't that good. I think Bournemouth, a bit more of a settled team, but more of an experienced team. I think they get the win at home quite easily, yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for joining me, Dill. That's it for this week's preview of Matchday 6. Thanks for watching Mixing with the DJs. As usual, like, comment, subscribe, etc. Let us know. Humble us like normal. And thank you so much for watching, guys. Thanks for joining. Cheers.